Hello and welcome to All Things Rex Worldwide Live. It's another Thursday. If you're watching live or if you're watching the recorded show, I'm so happy you're here. My guest today, I'm going to tell you about him in just a moment, but you're going to want to stay tuned. This is important information that you're going to want to have, and I think you're going to need to have. All right, but first let me say that we stream and record live here every Thursday on the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page, as well as LinkedIn, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Twitter, and it's available on Roku TV. I'm Rex Sike. I'm your host. I'm so glad that you're with me. If you like the show, please go ahead and hit the like buttons, share the show with your friends and your family, and also you can leave comments and ask questions right there at the Facebook Tribune, Los Angeles Tribune page. All right. So I am so pleased and so happy to have Dr. Fred Moss with me. And just so that you know, we're not giving out any medical advice. We're not telling you what to think or what to live. This is not a show where we're telling you what to do. This is just for information so that you have alternatives in your way of thinking or that you can investigate your own choices. And with that, Dr. Fred Moss has been a professional doctor, psychiatric doctor for over 30 years, and he had a lifestyle change. He made a very important decision for himself and for other people, and he now operates in the world very differently than he had before. That's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to bring Dr. Fred on and have him tell you more about himself. He's a remarkable man. I'm so pleased to have him here today. And let's see here. There he is.
Yay.
How are you today, sir?
It's great to see you, Rex. I'm doing fabulous. It's really fun. I'm in the middle of Texas on my way across the country. I started off in Northern California last week, and I'll be in Tampa by the end of the week. I'm with my beautiful wife, and we're trekking through this beautiful country on the Southern route. So I couldn't be more pleased to be exactly where I am, and especially with you at the show. So thanks for having me on.
I love talking with you. I love having you on. Dr. Fred and I did another show together, another show of mine. And just a really incredible source of pertinent, really important information that we all need to know about. So, yeah. And a transformational agent. You are somebody who works to help other people go beyond limitations and to experience life in positive and powerful ways. And so that's always a wonderful thing.
Well, I really am committed to that, Rex. I mean, that's really in the end of it. And I think that started when I was really young, but I know that by the time I was choosing what kind of profession to do, I looked at all these other professions. I hated school, Rex. I hated college the first time through. And I mean, I hated the college part. I loved Ann Arbor. I loved Ann Arbor too much, actually. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I dropped out one time and I came out here, in fact, used the Southern route, the same route that I'm on now, in fact. And came all the way to Berkeley, California, and found myself, or tried to find myself, and decided, well, I better get back to college. Tried one more time, dropped out one more time. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm surely not going to get an education, a formal education. It's not going to work for me. So I came home, told my mom that I wasn't going to do college ever again. And she said, well, that's great, Fred. Got to get a job then. I'm like, Rex, moms will be like that. They're like, if you're not going to, I mean, that's a mom's thing to say. I'm like, Mom, I mean, I just want to have a life. And so she got me an application at a state hospital. And it was a state hospital for children who are being housed there residentially for apparent alleged psychiatric illnesses. And, I was really scared to actually even work with adolescents like that. They were only a few years younger than me. And what I ended up doing was agreeing to go to orientation. So, they were going to pay me good money, better money than I'd ever seen. I thought I'd stay there 3 weeks and take that check and go buy myself the car I needed to go find out who I was, And on the fourth week, my friend told me that, he was counting on me to go up into the floors with him. So I did. And then I started what I already knew was true, Rex, which was that communication and connection and conversation were healing modalities in and of their own right. I mean, when we have a discussion with people and we understand and hear and resonate and be with whatever they're saying, healing takes place at that very instant. I think we all know that. We know that when people hear us, there's some healing that goes on. And we also know that if we hear other people, there's some maximum healing that goes on. And that's what I learned over there at Fairlawn Center in Pontiac, Michigan. But the thing I didn't like, Rex, was the way the psychiatrists were dealing with the kids. That was the thing I really didn't like the most. We would call the psychiatrist, we'd let him know that Johnny had been up too late or got in a fight with his peer or said no to the wrong staff. And instead of, really coming down to talk to him, that isn't what these psychiatrists did. They would come down, talk a quick minute with the nurses. And then before too long, they would pick some form of medication that they would put put on a chart. And then we'd have to hold the child down and actually give them that medication. And, if the child didn't talk for the next 24 hours, we called that a success. And I was just like horrified by the whole thing and decided that, I had the aptitude and the interest and the willingness. And I really did know that creativity and communication were at the heart of healing. So I decided to go back to school. And that's exactly what I did. I finished off my degree in downtown Detroit and then got accepted to medical school down in Chicago, Illinois at Northwestern University. And I went in there hoping that communication would be what I would learn how to do. Then there was another twisted fate. For those of us who are old enough to remember, like in 1987, 1988, Prozac was introduced. Yeah. And when Prozac was introduced to this world, that was a big deal. That's as big a deal as anything that's going on medically in these days. Anything that's going on, anything, including that thing. All of this is, Prozac was a huge, huge beast at the time. And we thought that we should put Prozac in the water system. We were thinking, LA, the Los Angeles water system was strongly considered putting Prozac right there in the water system. And instead, what we ended up doing was, really just switching the whole paradigm of what is a psychiatric illness. And there I was in medical school, ready to learn how to communicate. And there was psychiatry ready to take away communication from psychiatrists and just have us be medication providers, So then over the next several years, all psychiatrists became typecasted as those who I know the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. If I ask you what's the difference, it's already very clear what most people answer, including probably you. I mean, a knee-jerk answer, you may know more than that. But I mean, most people are like, oh yeah, psychiatrists are the one that prescribe medicine. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's why I went into psychiatry, so that I wouldn't have to do that. But over the next several years, I became an expert at medicating people. I became a psychopharmacological expert because that was what my job called for. And that really wasn't working out for me. I did it thousands, in fact, tens of thousands of times over the next several years. And instead, it just wasn't working as well as I hoped. So when I began to take people off of medication, I think that's what you were talking to with our audience here. That was around 2006. I began to just take people, the lower risk people off their medicine. And lo and behold, their lives just got way better. And then I took, a little bit higher risk people off their medicine. And lo and behold, their lives just got better. And I was like, wow, everyone I take off their medicine, their lives get better. Like this, and, now I want to make clear what we already said. I really want to make this clear, underline. This is not telling our audience, go ahead and come off your medicine. This is not that. It is simply not that simple. You don't just come off your medicine and get better. That isn't how it goes. Under the hands of somebody, a professional, if that's something you want to do, you should pursue talking to your professional psychiatrist or the doctor that's prescribing your medicine. If that's something you want to do, you're going to have to do that on your own. Please don't take my word for it or anything like that. I'm not giving you any instructions to do that. It's actually more complicated than that.
Well, and in all fairness, some medicines actually require a lengthy time of withdrawal in order to go through so that there aren't other problems that are exasperated.
Yeah, the whole tapering idea is a discussion for another podcast for sure. It's not entirely simple, but you're right. I mean, it's well known that some of these medicines you can't, if you stop, you're going to run into a lot. If you just stop abruptly, you're going to run into a lot of problems for sure.
I think we could easily say, and hopefully this makes it clear for everybody, we're not telling you to medicate. We're not telling you to stop medicating. We're telling you to follow the advice of the professionals who you seek out on your own. We're not giving you medical advice in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, let's make that very clear. I mean, I am a physician. I'm not going to deny that under any, I'm very proud to be a physician and to be a bona fide licensed healer. But the truth is, there are some things that we do. There's some things that we do that maybe don't do as well as we had hoped. There are some things that we take on, some interventions that modern conventional medicine takes on that really don't work nearly as well as we would hope for. So when I started really looking at simply altering or transforming the narrative that supports what mental illness is, and really started looking at ways to do that without being violent about it, without being angry, without like actually getting that it's all completely okay. It's entirely reasonable that altering or transforming the narrative that supports what is mental illness, and I know we'll get to this a little later, is one way to bring forth some form of healing. So inside of conversation and inside of creativity, we have a new paradigm available that's been with us for eons. Okay, it's long before medicines, we had this idea that speaking with someone or having a powerful conversation or using creativity in the form of art or music or dancing or singing or drama or cooking or writing or gardening, like these kinds of things can be very helpful in decreasing the symptomology. I love these questions that are coming in, by the way, Rex, and I want to field them as they are, but the truth is I just want to complete this section of what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is, I have found that that's why I created the brand Welcome to Humanity. And what Welcome to Humanity really is trying to get that uncomfortable experiences as they occur are part of humanity. Really uncomfortable, like intolerably, like unspeakably uncomfortable experiences. Folks, that's called being human. And if we really, I don't mean to diminish or decrease or in any way dismiss the power of these uncomfortable experiences to take us down to our knees, to give us to make us wonder why we're even here on earth. I'm not saying that I'm decreasing that. I mean, those things really can happen. It just doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that you're experiencing something that is very terribly uncomfortable for sure. And the opportunity really exists to do something different than give you a diagnosis and give you some medications. Because as we give diagnosis and medications, and I know you knew we were going to go here, it is frankly a typical, what happens is that the medications and the diagnoses tend to perpetuate the condition that they're marketed to either describe or treat. So when we give someone a diagnosis, it supports the notion of perpetuating that diagnosis. And then in some of these medications, when we give the medication, it actually perpetuates the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. And even in rare cases, Rex, actually causing the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. Well, so, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, and some of the research that a lot of these drugs got passed on back in those days has since been brought into big question. Not only their efficacy, but their ability to cause harm or to have unwanted side effects. But what I appreciate so much about you is the fact that you point this out to people. This is a message that, hey, there are things that you need to know about that you may not know about. And I'm always a huge proponent that the more awareness, the more knowledgeable you would be in a situation like, especially about your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, or financial health, the better informed you are, the wiser choices that you might be able to make.
Right.
And without that information, you're driving with a blindfold.
It's really interesting. I appreciate what you're saying. And of course, that's almost like obvious or almost a no-brainer, but we don't do that anyways. Even if it's obvious and a no-brainer, we make decisions with less information than we know is available.
This is true. It's always true. It goes without saying, yes.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that even when we decide that, I guess the next point I want to make about all this is when I bring this up, it's very rare. It's very rare that people will hear what I'm saying and then argue back like, no, medications work or something. It's like, look, here's what medications can do. Medications can decrease the symptomology that you're experiencing. And one of the analogies that I used earlier this morning with a client that I had, a beautiful client, actually, beautiful. I'm so happy to get started working with this particular person, was that if you went into a doctor and you had a mosquito bite on your elbow and it just wouldn't go away, Just every morning you wake up, the darn thing is so irritating, and you scratch it and it gets bigger, and you're like, oh, I can't deal with it. So you go to a doctor, and the doctor looks at you, and you're like, Mrs. Jones, I have something that can fix that mosquito bite and maybe even cure it forever. And she's like, really? That's wonderful. Let's see what that is. He goes, yeah, it's only going to hurt for a moment. It's like, okay, well, what is it? He goes, well, we're going to cut off your arm at the shoulder. And Miss Jones says, well, will that take away my mosquito bite? And he's like, yeah, it will. So they actually amputate the arm at the shoulder. And then 2 weeks later, she comes back, and the doctor said, do you still have that mosquito bite? And she says, no, I don't. And see, super cure. And she actually, for a moment, is happy because that mosquito bite was dominating her life. And all she can see now is that the mosquito bite isn't there, and there's no itching. There's no arm, but there's no itching either. And one of the things that these medications and these diagnoses sometimes do is something very close to that analogy. Not only does it take away that symptom, whether it's anxiety or depression or fear, it takes away all sorts of emotions and leaves us flat, or leaves us blunt, or leaves us uninterested, or incapable of being happy or sad. By muting our emotions, we can take away the uncomfortable ones. What we don't notice, though, is we have also taken away the comfortable ones when we do that. And my goodness, what kind of price is that, especially since there are alternatives to deal with the discomfort of what it means to be alive.
And that is something I would like to get into in a little bit, because there are alternatives, and you provide alternatives. And I provide alternatives, for some of these very issues that we're discussing. But also, I would like to turn our attention just a little bit to the notion of diagnosis again, and how that affects the person mentally once they receive a diagnosis and/or prognosis.
Yeah. Well, this is a beautiful discussion. And I always have to be a little bit careful. There are people out there who are diagnosed and who are absolutely hanging on to their diagnosis as being who they are, who their identity is, how they roll, what they might even be getting some form of disability, or their family sees them that way. They see themselves as being their psychiatric condition. And they're not wrong about that, by the way. When they say something like, I am ADHD, or I am a bipolar disorder, or I am schizophrenia, schizophrenic, or whatever people say, they're not wrong. It's just all encompassing once you do that. And here's the thing, we are all making mistakes every day. Rex, you know how many mistakes I made today?
How many?
A lot.
I bet.
A lot. And I'm not any different than any other human. I say the wrong stuff. I hurt people sometimes. I think the wrong thing. I make wrong decisions. And and sometimes I'm left very uncomfortable with what I just did. And if I then can go to a doctor or an authority and say, well, why do I make these decisions? And then they remove my responsibility for my life from me by saying the reason you do those things is because you have a condition that you have no control over. The damage to me is just astronomical at that point. Now, I want to give, in fact, Rex, from now on, I'm going to give you the responsibility of all the things when my life are not going well. So I'm going to blame it on you from now on, because I just realized that talking to you actually led to me making some mistakes. So I'm going to give you that responsibility. Now, the truth is, if I can relinquish that responsibility and feel like I am now insulated from my bad decisions, that's very attractive. Most of the people that come to a psychiatrist are really looking to learn that there's something wrong with them. Right. Unlike any other subspecialty in medicine, if you tell a patient that there's nothing wrong with them, they'll just go to the next doctor to find out what's wrong with them. And people really want to hear that there's something wrong with them. Do you get that thinking there's something wrong with you is so ubiquitous that we could consider that a sign of normalcy?
Well, maybe that makes perfect sense, because we're told we're wrong so often in early childhood.
Thank you.
In school, we're graded, we're wrong, it's bad to be wrong. There must be something wrong. So if you have a presenting problem, you go, what is wrong with me? You don't go, what's right with me?
Right, exactly.
You're trying to identify what the issue is, because we've been trained to focus on issues most of our lifetime, or what the problems are. So it makes perfect sense.
Yes, exactly. And when we get these diagnoses, these diagnoses are only conversations after all. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that the conditions or that the circumstances or that the experiences are any less powerful. I'm not diminishing those experiences. However, when I tell you, if I was to tell you I have some condition and I say I have autistic spectrum disorder, I have narcissistic personality disorder, I have generalized anxiety disorder, I have major depressive disorder, I have social phobia, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. When you say that, normally what's happening over there with the other listener and even with yourself is that is a big range of meaning. Like, because I have this condition, this is how I respond in this circumstance. I like to think that we really can take back a responsibility for our lives as long as we're willing to understand that we're making mistakes all the time and that life isn't always comfortable. So one of the things that we can get is maybe, just maybe, that diagnosis is serving a purpose that isn't empowering. And maybe by saying, I am deficient, I am afflicted, I am defective, I'm stuck with this thing that attacked me called a psychiatric condition, then we really are just shaving off so much of the power and authorship and responsibility for our life that the damage can be immeasurable. Immeasurable, Rex. While we're doing that, it's like, okay, there's a ceiling. The ceiling is like right at the top of my head. That's it. We're not getting any better from where I am right now. Well, maybe that's simply not true. And that's the work that I'm doing now in transformational and restorative coaching, is really raising that ceiling, really taking a look at other ways to look at life, to reconfigure the narrative, to really transform the paradigm that otherwise has been labeled as mental illness, at least since 1987, when I was a third year in medical school.
And I love you for that, and I appreciate that. And we're going to be coming up on a break in about 6 or so minutes, and we'll have a brief pause. But before we get there, and I want to come back afterwards too, and talk about the difference of your approach today and what you're doing and how you're helping transform lives. And I think people are getting an inkling of it already from how you're discussing the topic. We talk about, affirmations, for example, and say, you should say, I am brilliant, I am wonderful, I am loving, I am kind. And we tell people not to say, I am stupid, I am lonely, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm worthless. So when people say, I have these things, or I am this, they are. Fernando Flores is a brilliant person who's not a native speaker of language. Says there's 4 things you can do in the English language: ask a question, or make a request, give a promise, make an assertion, and a declaration. And I always like to point out that an assertion is kind of like, I'm wearing a black jacket. It's an observable fact. You can tell.
You look pretty good in it too, by the way, Rex.
Thank you. I'm very svelte and dapper, aren't I? Yes. Yeah. I'm wearing glasses. Those are assertions.
Those look pretty hot too.
Thank you, man. I right back at you, man. We should be driving together in a red Ferrari down Sunset Boulevard at this very moment. The wind blowing through our bald heads, and but he said also that we make declarations. So, for example, in a court of law, the only person that can make a declaration is the judge and or the jury. They're empowered by our government to be able to assert the guilt or not guilt of the defendant or the person on trial, civil or otherwise. So the point is that we oftentimes, the defendant can't say, I declare myself innocent of these charges. And yet we make declarations about ourselves all the time, which are oftentimes not really useful declarations to make. We make assertions about ourselves, which may or may not be accurate, any more than you want to have a no arm to get rid of a mosquito bite, and so learning how to think about the condition that was an issue for people differently, so that they can experience the fullness or more of the fullness of life, rather than the limitation or the prison of the diagnosis or the prognosis or whatever it is. The other thing I will say, and then I'm going to shut up, is that in language we talk about things that there are verbs and then there are Now there's what's called a process word, and then there's a nominalization where, and a nominalization is where you take a process and you freeze it by labeling it as essentially a noun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I say I am a sanitation worker, that's somehow that like sums up my entire existence. If I say I'm a doctor, it sums up my entire existence. But we're so many other things. And if you say I have this diagnosis, or my cancer, or I'm a depressive, or I'm a schizophrenic, or I'm that identity thing that people lock into is it's like it's frozen in time and no longer a process that has flux to it. It's this frozen thing, and it becomes more, I think, more of a prison that a person wears than an opportunity to get beyond it because they're locked into the label.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making great sense. Thank you. And really what I'm noticing is the context, the recontextualization that's here, the possibility of really looking at, what is possible inside of the recontextualization. So once we declare that there is something wrong with us, once we declare that we're defective or we're afflicted or we're ill, we're less than, we're deficient. Once we declare those things, well, then we really have taken away the possibility. We really have taken away the responsibility. We really have taken away the accountability of who we get to be for our life. Like the possibility and the accountability and the responsibility of who we get to be for our life includes breaking through the things that are uncomfortable. So yes, there are really uncomfortable experiences in life. And yes, the opportunity exists to own those as myself. Decisions that I've made that I'm shameful of or that I would, blame myself for, those are the ones that tend to lead to me looking for assistance, like what must be wrong with me. And if I get affirmation that something's wrong with me and then I walk around the rest of my life actually acting like there's something wrong with me, well, there is then. And, and if I treat myself with treatment or medication that actually creates the symptoms I'm marketed to treat, we got a good rabbit hole to go down together. And we can reconfigure that narrative. We can transform that conversation. We can, with proper transformational or restorative coaching, actually recontextualize life such that optimization appears when it had otherwise been thought to be unimaginable. And that's the kind of work I'm now doing. I can't wait to share.
And we'll share that when we come back from the break. And it was actually a question that Cindy asked, have you considered going into other alternatives of healing? And of course you have, and that's why we're glad to have you. So hang tight. We'll be right back. My dogs are making noise, but here's a message from the Los Angeles Tribune. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We have earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we are back, Doctor. We had some great comments and we've had some questions. But before we take the questions, that I noticed there were a couple of them there. And one was Cindy's about, have you considered getting into alternative healing? And you have. Let's go there. Let's talk about what you are doing, and you've given us some of the background as to why you're doing that. But continue, please.
Right. So, normally these days, the kind of clients that I'm taking I'm doing some coaching with. So basically, I'm looking for people. The people who are pursuing me to be their practitioner or their coach or their clinician or whatever it is that they're looking for, their assistant or their guide, are people who are really getting that what they've been doing up to now isn't working or isn't working as well as they had hoped for. And so they come to me to look at the possibility of really altering their lives. And, the stars have to be aligned somewhat. We need to have our caregivers. We need to have our spouses or our children, the people who mean a lot to us, need to also be ready for us to shift. Because, if all four tires on a car don't have enough air and you just clean up one of them, the car is going to ride ragged. Even though one of the tires is actually perfect, that's actually going to disrupt the way the car runs. And so we need to have the entire system be at least potentially ready to have this kind of shift take place, because we are really talking about a foundational paradigmatic shift, especially in cases that have been going on for years or decades. So people who show up with me are like, I've been coming at this and I keep getting worse, or I know I'm better than this, or I feel muted, or I feel like I, can't do this, or wish I could do that, or want to do that, or I lost this. And you know what? I'm ready to try something different. So in transformational coaching or in restorative coaching, there's a couple things that we talk about implementing. And part of that is really starting with the idea that really all you are is human. Now, if you're not ready to start with all you are is human, then you're not ready for this work. I mean, what it really talks about is maybe all you are is human, with all the flaws of what it means to be human. And even, believe it or not, the same flaws that every one of us have at some level. So when you know that there's something wrong with you, all you are is being a normal human being, because each of us knows there's something wrong with us. And, when ready to start with, well, maybe, just maybe, the way I've been looking at my world has been a disempowering context, and I'm ready to consider looking at things entirely different, then through conversation, and these days it's really all we have, because we're online almost 100% of the time, and I've been practicing telepsychiatry for about 12 years. And so I'm really, it's been comfortable for me, but many people have only recently had to make the shift into telepsychiatry. What we have is the possibility of altering and reconfiguring the narrative. I've spoken to that a few times. And the alteration that we have is we start from there and start looking at different ways to look at the uncomfortable experiences, different ways to look at this chronic anxiety. Might it have to do with something you're either taking in or not taking in? And that doesn't have to be only from your mouth. It can be from what you see or what you're listening to, those kinds of things where we can detox ourselves. We can detox, or at least get that maybe the reason I feel that way is because I do or I don't do particular things. We can actually work towards getting ourselves a little bit healthy. Creativity is really a massive source of healing. So I've written a book called The Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. And that book looks at 8 different ways of expressing ourselves using the creative arts. So art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. And that's one place to do it. And we really start looking at different ways to manage life than what has been the prevailing conversation, which, like you've already pointed to, includes diagnoses and treatments, including medications. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you for pointing that out. And,
I wouldn't have been able to answer your question if I hadn't pointed it out.
I love that. So, but while you're going on, where can they get your book? Or let's just get some contact information for you right away.
Yeah, sure. So at my website, you can actually download. Watching this podcast, I forget which one is which, but one of them is an ebook and one of them is a PDF. So if you go to welcometohumanity.net/creative, I think that's where you get my ebook. And if you go to welcometohumanity.net/creative8, I think that's where you get my PDF. And so that's an easy space to get it. And I have another book coming out next month, but this one is the one that's available free to our listeners.
So it's welcometohumanity, all one word, .net/creative.
Or welcometohumanity.net/creative8. One of those brings you a PDF and the other one brings you an ebook.
Creative, the number 8?
The number 8, yes, sir.
So hopefully we got these right. They'll flash up on the screen in a moment, and so that people can find Welcome to Humanity. I hope everything.
That's right. Yep, I think that's right.
And then the other one. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but wanted to make
that's
sure
fine. Thanks for doing that.
That's there for you, and because you do such marvelous work, you have such a. What I really like about you, particularly you, besides the fact that you're good looking, is the idea. The way that you express your ideas at the heart that they come from, because it's with a good heart, it's with this transformation, with the idea of helping people. And I know a lot of people get into medicine for the ability to help people and some don't, but you have this very special way of you walk your talk, and you're dedicated to really helping people make a difference. And so, God,
Yeah.
I mean, and in such a critical way, because I don't know that, in the transformational arts, and sciences, I guess you would say, the labels that we wear and live from constitute our prisons or our liberation. And you and I talk on or off the air, and one of the things I always say is the solution can be as bad as the problem, which is what you pointed out earlier. Or
Yeah.
the very fact that you're looking for a solution means you have a problem.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like the gift of solving a problem is another problem. So why wear labels, or have self judgments, or be categorized, put your own self in a box and live from that box? And yet that's what we do all the time. And then you deal with people who either go from mild to extreme, issues with that. And yet for the average everyday person who's not medicated or not facing, psychiatric diagnosis or even a medical diagnosis in that regard, it's still as equally as important and valuable to understand what they think and say about themselves, and who they consider themselves to be, and what they're capable of.
Right. Exactly. It's really, again, once we accept a diagnosis, we go to a psychiatrist. We basically, these days, the way psychiatry works is that, you talk your brains out to your therapist or to your psychologist, your social worker, your counselor, your minister. You talk, and if they're unable to actually disrupt or dislodge you from your negative feelings, then eventually someone makes a decision like, I don't know, you're not responding to me, you're not responding to my level of communication. I guess we gotta, move you up to the psychiatrist and then take care of you from a chemical imbalance level, like there must be something wrong with your chemicals. And here's what I have to say about that. I can guarantee that you will be chemically imbalanced all the time if you take chemicals. So in other words, if you actually take chemicals that alter the way your brain works, by definition, that's going to be a chemical imbalance. And the chemical imbalance isn't what preceded that, but the chemical imbalance certainly took place after you began to take chemicals that imbalanced you. And that's what I'm saying about perpetuating the symptoms that it's marketed to treat.
What also do you think about the more recent studies that suggest that it may not even be the brain or the brain-blood barrier where all this, but it might be the gut or the intestines or the immune system or other things, and that we've been treating the wrong organ. And while there is some successes, that would statistically be accountable for anyway, whether it's statistically significant or not. So you're really not. I mean, because when you look at a lot of statistics on medications and their efficacy, and oftentimes, even when they're prescribed medicine, they go, well, this plus therapy or this plus another thing, makes it work. So that then calls into the question of, well, what if you just did the therapy?
Right. And, and again, even the therapy, Rex, I want you to be clear.
I agree with you. I know where you're going. I agree.
Like, as soon as you say therapy, you also have to first go to the idea that might be something wrong with you. And we all want to be understood. We all want to be heard. There is nobody here who doesn't want to be heard. I guarantee there is nobody in our audience who doesn't give a hoot about whether they're being heard. Everyone here wants to be heard. And that's why I rolled into the new industry that you and I had talked about earlier. Who I am now. I love podcasting. I love these kind of podcasts. I love being a podcaster. The Welcome to Humanity podcast is a cool podcast. And I really realized that in my years of being a psychiatrist, I've had about 40,000 charts that I've entered. And most of those charts meant at least a conversation with a patient. And so I've had about 35,000 podcasts leading up to the world of podcasting. So these days I run a program called True Voice Podcasting. And what we do is we really help people rediscover their true voice, unconceal their true voice, and bring their true voice forth through a world of podcasting. In this world these days, maybe most of our audience knows this or has been feeling it, there's a contraction. We no longer are really counted upon to speak our true self. And when we speak our true selves, we're really faced with the fears of being discounted or maybe canceled or being trolled or being hated. Those are the kind of things that are going on if we speak our true voice. So we tend to mute or muffle our true voice when we go here. The idea is, I love that last question about insanity, and maybe I'll be able to address it. I don't have pills for insanity. More than likely what we're going to do if someone has in fact gone insane is find out what they have been taking that has led them that way, or what kind of influence we might be able to do. Now, we have to look at each case of insanity a little bit different. And I don't really there's not like a, what do you do for insanity? The world is very insane.
There's no one size fits all, in other words.
No, the world is, if you haven't looked recently, I don't know, the world is insane. And to be sane in an insane world is not the sign of someone who's healthy. There's an opportunity to really get that we are living in an insane world, and none of us have a better handle on how to do that than each other. We're just all taking that next step into the abyss together. We're all doing what we think is right based on what other people have told us or our previous experience. And we do limit our possibilities when we don't look that way. I hear you. And thank you, Ori. Thank you for that. That's really great. I agree with you. It isn't about hearing. It's about listening. It's about being heard in the world of synonymous to listening. I fully got that.
Would that be just? I don't mean to segue off, but what do you think? I mean, the fact that social media came along and gave everyone suddenly a voice, and so now they're exercising it in an attempt or desperate need to be heard.
Yeah, that would be great. Except what's really happening is there's so much discounting and so much dismissing and so much hatred and so much canceling and so much trolling and fear mongering in the social media world. So what we actually feel comfortable saying has been reduced to being like, showing what we ate for lunch, or showing our last good picture of our best haircut, or showing us being with our family, or showing, we no longer are speaking our true voice. And that's where true voice podcasting comes in. We're walking with people who are ready, who understand the urgency, the accountability, and the responsibility they have for bringing their true voice into the world once and for all. And now is that time. So we're training these people to not only find their true voice, but to broadcast it freely, to the target audience that's eager to and eagerly awaiting to receive those messages. Just like your folks here, all things Rex, your fan base is eagerly awaiting each and every Thursday. And there are people out there who have things to say, whether it's about petunias in Arkansas or sex trafficking or, really important climate change, whatever it is your big wig deal. But it's not the content that sells the podcast, Rex. It's actually the authenticity and the intimacy, which I call true voice. And so who we are now is really helping people get that true voice honed in, get it really laser sharp, and then deliver that into the airwaves. Because my goodness, the time is now. Don't you agree?
I do agree. And I think you just said something really, really important to understand. I don't want it to be glossed over, and because I do think it's something that it's why certain things make a difference now, and that is that there's so much information, there's so much content, there's so much this, and that none of that really matters anymore. It is the intimacy, it is the authenticity, it is the ability to connect, it's the ability to be heard and to connect and to listen and to gravitate to it other people who are doing it. I think you're right on target with that. That makes so much sense in this world.
Yeah, it really does. I know for me, these last 2 years, just like everyone else, have been the most trying years that I've ever had in my life. And I speak for 4 or 5 or 7 billion people when I say that. And when it all kind of shook out for a few minutes until I realized, what's happening here that is most important, the most dangerous thing that's happening in this world is not what you think it is. The most dangerous thing that's happening in this world, it's not what you think it is. It's that our voice is being taken away from us. It's that we are giving away our voice. And I don't care where you stand on any particular issue. You no longer have the voice you once had, and we are giving that back, and they are taking it away. And we no longer feel safe speaking our true voice. And that, my friends, is by far, the most dangerous thing happening in the world today. And I really want to make that clear, because I like being the source of the counterbalance to that is give people their darn true voice, Make sure that you're aligned with what you say so that you can be aligned, so that you can be authentic, so that you can be intimate, and then use one of the last remaining vestiges that it's available to actually deliver that voice. And I say that that's in the industry of podcasting more than anything else at this time.
That's fascinating. And I agree with you. And I would add that there's also kind of surreptitiously, there's this undercurrent of, if we let everybody speak, it becomes meaningless at some point. If everybody's voicing an opinion, because it's easily dismissed at that point, it just becomes white noise. It's when you're authentic, when you can actually, speak your truth, when you can actually connect with another person, that is in danger of being taken away.
Exactly.
The fact that I can express an opinion is almost meaningless today, because everybody can express an opinion, but we truly can be shut down for doing that. We can be ostracized, because of our opinions. I mean, there's a lot of hate going on, social media, we see that. But there's also the danger in thinking that because we can express an opinion, we have freedom of speech, or that we're being heard, or that we're making a difference, when in fact, much of that just becomes white noise. So it's what you're talking about that elevates it.
Right. So, in the same line to what Ori had said earlier, I don't want to be heard. I want to be, I want to be listened. There's something like, I don't want to speak. I want to have a voice. There's the same kind of thing. It's like, I want my authentic voice to be heard. This tool that we have where we, spit air out of our mouth and it creates a sound, and the other person on the other side actually translates that sound, puts it into their head, comes up with a response, and then does the same thing back to us. And then the world turns as a result of that, is an absolute ridiculous miracle of humanity.
Truly.
It is insane and that we can now do it over the airwaves, that we can now do it. I'm looking at a billion pixels of a sound card and delivering it into an empty room box, and you're hearing me like nearly 2,000 miles away, and it's coming in clear on real time. That is just insanity in and of its own right that we accept as reality. But the truth is, this voice of ours carries so much weight, and nearly all changes that have taken place in humanity have changed on the back end of people speaking their honest to goodness truth, and then making things happen as a level of implementation after they planned, after they created ideas, after they shared, after they designed ideas, after they really looked at what needed to be done, after they started looking into themselves to find out what really makes them tick, and then delivering that true voice into the world. That's what I'm a stand for, Rex. And for me, I've never been closer to being aligned with exactly what I'm doing in my life. And I feel like really what an honor to be standing in the world doing exactly what I was here to do. Like, it's really a wonderful experience that I wish for everyone. And it's only an inch away when you speak your true voice.
So let's go back to how they reach you for the podcast. Is that through, and I'll type that in so that everybody has it on the screen. And
I think the best way to do that is going to be coming through the welcometohumanity.net. But I think let me give you my email too, because that's another space. If you give me a jingle on my email, let me know that you're interested in the course. What I'd like to do, if you'll see on my website, there's an opportunity to hit a discovery, to get a discovery call. If you get a discovery coaching call and you let me know that you're interested in a podcast, that's one way to do it. Interested in the podcasting course, the True Voice podcasting course, which at least at this time for the next 2 runs will be a 13-week course where you get access to me and get access to everything you need to know about delivering a podcast, and walk away with 4 published podcasts of your own, and walk away with the access to amazing folks around the world who have now aligned with me to help me with media coaching and distribution and post-production and all that. The best way to do that is to either go to my website and book a discovery call, a coaching discovery call, or to email me at drfred@welcometohumanity.net. drfred@welcometohumanity.net is going to be one way that we can get this done. I'll set up a call, because this isn't for everyone, as you just said. It's white noise if all you want to do is like get up there and bark yourself. Like, what I'm interested in is for people who are truly willing truly willing to take a deep dive into figuring out what their true voice is, and then really bringing that authentic message directly into the world. That's who I'm interested in working with. And if that's you, then well, come on aboard. I look forward to working with you. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a little bit of time left before we go. We've got your website. They can get a PDF, they can get an ebook, they can get a discovery call, and all sorts of other things as well. So this is awesome. It is available, on the program now. I mean, part of the program, people can see it. They can repeat it if they have it, or wind back if they have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to do is spend the last few moments, if we could, kind of giving people ideas. We've talked about some pretty important topics here about wearing labels and diagnoses and how that can be limiting, about how we're not being heard, we're not having a true voice, or the authentic voice being, getting out there. And so what are the kinds of things that people can do in terms of tips, suggestions, or advice that they can do to live better, live happier, healthier, and wealthier, given the constraints that we've talked about? In the old days, food was considered medicine, and there were different, and drink plenty of water and hydrate, and what people miss is about that. A lot of people don't get the right amount of sleep, the proper amount of exercise, to take care of themselves. A lot of our problems would probably be eliminated if we got up off our butts, walked a whole lot more, drank a whole lot more water, and stopped eating tons of processed foods with, crap, or drinking water that's got prescription medicine floating around in it. I mean,
well, it's funny that it's true. And the FDA, the F&D are in the same organization. It's not, it's not a coincidence. It's like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they take care of the food side, and Tuesday and Thursday, probably Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they take care of the drug side, and Tuesday and Thursday, they take care of the food side. And it's the same people that call like these things adequate or appropriate for human consumption. The truth is that most of the food that's served up to us isn't really adequate or appropriate for human consumption. And that happens to be true with many of the drugs as well. So there's that. There's what we take into our system. There's what we take into our system through our other senses as well. If you're spending time just scrolling on the internet or going to these really dark and nasty places that many of us actually find ourselves going to, and then finding ourselves just scrolling and being with that, why then you're really toxifying yourself. You're really taking toxic measures to deal with life. And there is such thing as mindfulness. There is such things as just sitting. There's such thing as meditating. It's very powerful meditation. If you drink water, it's a lot better than drinking soda. If you eat organic foods, it's a lot better than eating Cheetos. By the way, when they come up with organic Cheetos, I think I'm going to cash it in. I think that'll be it. I think that'll be it. And if you start looking at what does it take to be a human being who can be a human being who's creating a positive difference, if you have nowhere else to go, and this is like the punchline in the Creative 8 book, I'll give it to your listeners. The best thing to do is to help anybody do anything. Be of service. Go out there and do anything with another person. Anything. Get out of your own skin, get out of your own why me, get out of all that. And for the time that you're actually helping another person, all of your symptoms will relieve themselves. Every one of them, every single mental health problem you think you have goes away instantly while you are serving somebody. And that is really what we're here to do. We are social beings here to help each other walk through this absurd, ludicrous life that we all have. And to think it's anything less than absurd or ludicrous is just missing the point. Of course it is. I mean, of course it is. And it's over sooner than later. The truth is that there are so many things to do. Really watching what you take into your system, really being of service, sitting, exercising, and maybe it's not exercising. Maybe it's just movement, maybe getting out in nature. And for those people who are still interested in it, and still willing to do it, human touch can be incredibly therapeutic. This idea that human touch has become so much more scarce is really a serious threat to humanity. This idea that we can't hug each other or hold each other's hands or shake each other's hands or be with each other is a serious threat to human consciousness. And what I'm saying by that, I'm not even making an opinion one way or another. I'm just saying that in the space of human touch comes a tremendous amount of vibrancy. So I missed that comment about organic Cheetos, but I totally appreciate whatever there it is. I'm the only one with oh yeah, I can see, Ori, we got to talk, Ori. I'm ready for a bag of those. So I think the next space is really you already know what good things are to do. You already know. You do. All of you. You all know. You're like, no, I'm not eating broccoli. I'd rather eat Cheetos. And by the way, Ori, are those organic Cheetos broccoli flavored? Because then we're talking. Then I want to know. Like broccoli au gratin Cheetos. Anyways, one of the things I really am looking for is tapping what you already know. If you're honest with yourself, you already know that most of the stuff I've said today, you already know to be true. I'm not saying anything that's rocket science here, folks. I'm saying the same stuff that little Freddie was saying when he was in his playpen at 3 or 4 years old. It's the same stuff. It's not different. Humanity hasn't shifted that much. It's the same stuff. You want to be healthy, then be healthy. Do healthy things. You know what those healthy things are. You don't have to pretend, really, I shouldn't eat a bag of Cheetos for dinner. No, you probably shouldn't. You want to have some Cheetos here and there, that's fine. And this is not an anti-Cheetos show either. Don't talk to me about how good Cheetos are. I'm into Cheetos. I like them. But the truth is, you can make yourself toxic, and even that is okay as long as you frequently detoxify yourself. So that's the other thing, really watching what you take in and really watching what you put out. When you are overtly negative with another person, when you are hating, when you are fearing, when you are doing those, or fear-mongering, created fear, you're delivering negative energy into the world, and there's no question that you'll feel the effects of that. So stop doing that too. Be kind, be accepting, be forgiving, do that stuff, be real with yourself. Get that this is a temporary existence.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Truly beautiful. And I'm getting. You hear?
Yeah, I'm here.
No, but do you hear feedback?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll continue. That's truly beautiful, because I have ever said that the wisdom of the ages and the ancients is pretty much all we need. And what most of modern science does, if it's not promoting bad things, it's validating what we already know is to be true. It's not discovering new things for us to do. It's just saying, yep, we should eat right, drink right, sleep right, exercise right, fill our minds with positive stuff, not put out the negative energy, and be healthy in all areas of your life. I mean, it's really, truly very simple. And then marketers for decades have tried to convince us that it's tough. We'll never be able to do it. You need another product. You need another pill. You need another treatment. You need another something, because you alone are not enough, and the world has never provided the right things for you. But we at such and such industries have and will and do. And then it gets sanctioned by the FDA and promoted by this, promoted by that, and the machinery is huge. But what you say is what to do. It's
you do
there all along.
You do.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what uncovering true voice is. That's what restorative transformational coaching is. I don't actually bring anything new. We just take off all the mud that's gotten in the way. We take out all the mud and all the disruption and all the misdirections that we have decided is reality. We start just correcting directions, micro corrections and some macro corrections towards already living aligned with what we know, what we know is true and what we know works. There are very few people who simply don't have knowledge of what's good or bad. Even the really bad people, they have to know what's good, because every time they make a bad decision, they're just making the opposite of good. They're thinking, oh no, if I did that, that would be good, but I need to do bad because I'm a bad person, so I'm going to do bad. But they already know what good is. I mean, it's very few. You could say, what about him? What about them? What about her? Yes, that's really true. But I'm telling you, I've worked in some prisons, Rex. I've been in, Pelican Bay and Folsom State. And what I find out is that when people are heard, sometimes for the first time in decades, light bulbs go, like, whoa, that person is totally different from that moment on. Finally finding someone who can hear what their true message is It alters life fundamentally. And that's what we're here to do. Be with your human friends. Be with each of us. Welcome to humanity, folks. Welcome to humanity.
And therein is a whole lot of other conversations we could be having. I mean, the way we treat addicts in this country, the way we treat rehabilitated people who've been to prison, who've come out on the other side, the opportunities that aren't available to them because they have a prison record is no different than the diagnosis that follows people around through insurance companies and everything else. I mean, we live in an interesting world where we're very quick to judge, very quick to label, very quick to say what's wrong, and not so much, especially in our country, to give people redemption and to allow them to be themselves and to allow them to heal and recover and move forward and celebrate that. Because you know what, that is what we can do, and that is what people try and market that we can't do. And I mean, there's an industry to keep us down. You know, it's an amazing industry.
Yeah. So you bring up a point, and it's been banging around in my head. I want to bring it up because I have a feeling our listeners are wondering where it is. So in the idea of being kind or being forgiving or being accepting or having compassion, in all of those ideas, there tends to be a spiritual aspect to life, you know, really getting that the mystical isn't, if you walk into an emergency room and you say you saw God, they will put you on a psychiatric unit instantly. Now, maybe not every time, but if you say, well, I some sort of version of you talk to God, we were trained as psychiatrists to treat that as a psychiatric illness. The truth is that people have been seeing and talking to God since the first day of all humankind. And we treat that as something that deserves to be institutionalized. I am inviting you to find your higher power, as they say in some places, you know, that can even be a flower or a picture or a doorknob, or it can be your God or your creator. It can be the life force, whatever you want to call it. And understand that it's not all about you. There is something about really getting that who you get to be for others is what really matters, you know? The love you take is equal to the love you make, as our good friend the Beatles used to say. Muted again, Rex.
I see that. I was going to say, you know, it is fascinating that in our culture in the U.S., that is particularly true. And maybe other Western, and there are some societies where they actually revere those people who are talking to God, or who, you know, sometimes the people who are considered outcasts in our country are the very, very people who they seek wisdom from. In the same way that there are cultures who revere the aged because they understand that they've lived a long life and they've had experience, or cultures more like ours where they dispose of the aged because, you know, it's important that the young people come up, you know, or something like that. So it's truly, I love Dr. Fred. I love you. I love this. I love the conversation we've had. I love the other conversations we've had both on and off the air. Dr. Fred is also on another show that I do called Create Your Best Life with Rex, which is available on my YouTube channel. So I really, Fred, this has been amazing. I want to give you the opportunity to wrap it. I mean, you kind of did wrap it up right there, but there's so much beauty in what you're doing. And I don't want to have the final word. When you're done though, I will have to close the show. So I will say goodbye at that point. And if you hang around for a little bit, we'll talk after the show closes out.
Sure. I'd love to. And I'm going to say one more thing, which is if you go to my website, you'll see that a project that got started before the lockdown, it was a project called Global Madness. And Global Madness really took into consideration everything you're saying. This idea that in some cultures that, you know, the whole idea of mental illness is culturally specific. So in some cultures, what would show up as being institutionalizable shows up as being a promotion into the world of shaman, or into the world of medicine man, or into the world of deity, or into the world of bodhisattva, into the world of the next level up. So the Global Madness was going to take a look, and still is intended to take a look at different societies in Norway or Finland or Rwanda or Australia, and really look at how mental oddities are dealt with in various cultures so differently. You see, a broken arm is a broken arm, whether you're in Tokyo or Singapore or London or Little Rock. You got a broken arm, that's called a broken arm. That is simply not true in the world of psychiatry. And that really bodes towards this notion that psychiatry is simply a conversation. Now, when you start looking at all of this together, what I want you to see is the possibility exists is that there's nothing inherently wrong with you. We don't blame a log for burning in a fire. And we don't blame you. We don't blame you for being upset in a world that's upsetting, or being afraid in a world that's frightening, or being sad in a world that has loss, or being scared, being really scared in a world that is just terrifying, or all of those experiences of being confused or being aimless or being hopeless. All of those things are human experiences. And I really implore people to really take a look that maybe there's nothing wrong with you and nothing wrong with them. It's just we're all walking through one step at a time to try to make a difference. And when you begin to make a difference, the first thing you should do is start listening to other folks. That includes the people that you don't agree with. Like, can you listen to people that you absolutely are direct adversaries with? When you can start doing that, the world takes on a whole new order. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to join the club or anything. But what about listening to humanity as if each human is a divine creature? Then what becomes available is you get your own divinity. And then from there, the possibility of reorganizing and reoptimizing and recontextualizing your life such that you find power you thought was lost becomes 100% available. And that's what Welcome to Humanity is about. That's what my coaching is about. And these days, if you really want to hit the ground running, that's what True Voice podcasting is about. And that's what we're really training people, is to bring your true voice, your authentic message to the world right now. Now's the time. It's urgent. It's urgent. We're waiting on your voice. It's right now. You can't tell me you're going to do that in 2 or 3 years, because you don't even know what 2 or 3 years from now is going to look like. And we all know that. So now's the time to bring your true voice. And the way you do that is you listen to others and then respond effectively with your true voice, not your reactive voice. That's what I have to say for now, Rex. It's been a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much for spotlighting these very important issues. Muted again, bro.
You'd think I'd know by now, right? I'm so eager to talk to you. I am so happy that you're here. I've waited a long time to get you on.
Yeah, we've been dancing for a while.
And you have been marvelous, and you've brought up so many important topics. We will have to have you back to talk about other things as well. And people do go and look up Dr. Fred, his show. I mean, he's got his podcast, he's got the website, the Welcome to Humanity.net, and all those things have been on this thing. So be sure to go back. If you don't know where it is, look it up there, and contact Dr. Fred. But also, happy travels and trails as you continue to travel and trail southeastwardly. And you've been remarkable, a marvelous guest, and a friend, and I appreciate everything about you, sir.
Oh, that's just lovely. I do as well, Rex. I really love you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on again. Thanks for introducing me to this wonderful listenership. And if anyone else wants to talk or set up a discovery call, by all means, please do so. I'm open and ready for what this world has to offer, at least most of the time, except when I don't feel well. And then I remind myself the same thing I've told all of you, which is just like, WTH, welcome to humanity. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred. We'll be talking to you soon. Have a great one, and best to you and yours. And that is Dr. Fred Moss. And you have his contact information. He even gave out his email. And so you can take advantage of a discovery call and get to know him better, and even work with him as you choose. So I'm so very happy that we were able to do this, that you were here. Please do hit the like buttons wherever you are. Leave comments about the show. Feel free to share with people who you think will benefit from this show, your family, your friends, even strangers, on social media. Feel free to help me spread the word, and Dr. Fred spread the word both near and far and wide. Really would appreciate it, because you can extend the reach and reach people that he and I and others could never ever reach. So it's also in your hands, and that I am grateful for, and I appreciate you for being here live, and for watching the recorded show, and for all that you do to help each other make life wonderful. I am the author of a book, and I always get to say this at the end. If I can find out what I'm doing here. The book is Life on Your Terms, and the reason why I bring this book up is because I'm also giving to you who own the book, who've purchased the book at Amazon, the paperback or the hardcover, which is available there, is I'm giving you a training on mastery called the Mastery Loop. It's an online training. I'm giving it as a bonus for those of you who have the book. It's been valued at $497. It is about how you go from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, how you make habits that serve you so that you start winning in life instead of losing out on all the good things that are around you. So with that, you can go to rexsikes.com. That's my name. You see it scrolling by rexsikes.com /, and you'll have all the instructions for how you can access your training. You go to Amazon, get the book, put your receipt code into the special place there at rexsikes.com / book, and that training will be delivered to you. And I'm really happy to make that available to all the readers of the book, because the goal that I have for you is to transform your life doing the simple things that you can do. And Dr. Fred and I just had a conversation about the things that you know you should be doing and could be doing that you want to be doing. So go ahead and transform your life. And as I always say, if you consider everything a blessing, everything is a blessing. So go ahead and celebrate everything. And with that, I'm Rex Sikes. You've been watching All Things Rex Worldwide Live with my guest today. See you the next time. I got a great guest coming up next time. Oh, and is it next week? Is next week Thanksgiving week? Or it's the week after, right? I don't know. So I'll get you. You'll have to pay attention to social media to find out who my next guest is. And but I've got a great lineup of guests coming in between now and through December. All right. So all the best to you. Celebrate everything.